Hi friends, I'm Scott Giles, and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypnocoaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences generally. If you'd like to know more about my work or sign up for my free e-newsletter, Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Today I want to talk about unintended consequences. Now, military strategists tell us that no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. In other words, no matter how wonderful you think your plans are, unexpected things happen, and all your careful planning can go right out the window. Now, does that mean your planning was a waste of time? Absolutely not. Because as you crafted your plan, you were considering different options, limits, rules. And even if your plan does go wrong, you still will have thought through all of the various parts, and therefore you'll be able to improvise in a higher quality manner. Our decisions and actions can and often will have unintended consequences. An example of that can be found in the account of ancient Rome, where Julius Caesar had become dictator, which in that system was a temporary role as a warlord during a time of conflict. When the conflict ended, the dictator would give back the special powers he, possibly even she, had, and democratic rule would be restored. Well, a faction within the Roman Senate was concerned that Caesar was sufficiently ambitious that he would try to make his dictatorship permanent by declaring himself the emperor. And so they assassinated him, trying to prevent the establishment of an authoritarian government. But what they did had an unintended consequence. Social uproar over the death of Julius Caesar was so strong that the democratic government fell. And Caesar's great nephew, Octavian, was able to step forward and seize power and became the emperor. Now, in his defense, in the judgment of history, he was actually a good emperor. But the point is that the effort by the Roman Senate to prevent an emperor from arising actually had the unintended consequence of causing the very thing they were trying to prevent. Well, one of the things we've all learned from our connected world is that it is almost impossible to do just one thing. Because things are interconnected, one often cannot predict the outcome. In any complex system, even a small change can have big effects. Physicists are calling this the butterfly effect, a term coined by mathematician and meteorologist Edward Norton Lorenz. Lorenz theorized that a huge meteorological disruption, like a tornado, could have gotten started by a very small event, like a butterfly flapping its wings weeks earlier. While that may seem improbable, a tornado is a complex event caused by the concatenation of many things. And one of them could easily be a tiny disturbance in the air that lit the fuse to the explosion that was the tornado. And if that little thing had not been there, well, something entirely different might have happened. In 1961, Lorenz was running a computer simulation of a weather system. He entered the initial condition of air circulation as 0.506. Then he ran the simulation. Afterward, he realized that he had entered the initial value from a printout incompletely. So instead of being 0.506, it should have been 0.506127. When he corrected it and ran the simulation again, a completely different weather system resulted. A completely different result from an adjustment of the starting value of 0.000127, a difference of about a millionth of a degree. Tiny initial change, completely unexpected outcomes. Now, as some of you know, I am a martial artist and was an instructor of the ancient weapons of Korea and Japan for many years. One of the weapons I studied, and I loved it, just that it takes a lot of room to practice, was the whip. My instructor was fond of saying that tiny little adjustments, like having a finger an eighth of an inch out of position on the handle, has big effects 8 feet away at the tip of the whip. The whip doesn't crack and doesn't transfer its force to the target perfectly unless everything is correct. You may think a twitch in your little finger doesn't matter, but it can have an unintended consequence. Now, unintended consequences can be either good or bad. There's a famous Taoist parable from China about a man who fell off his horse and broke his leg. Now, something most people would say is a bad thing. But the next day, the emperor's army came through the town and drafted every able-bodied person to fight in a war that would eventually be lost. So the fall from the horse was actually a good thing, because it kept the man from being drafted and sent to battle, where he would very likely have died. We never know enough to be sure of the outcome of what we do. But we do know that it's never possible to do just one thing. Whatever we do, a myriad of things will result, some perhaps good, some bad. We have no way to tell. But we do have to take action if we're to live in the world. We can't refuse to do anything lest something bad happen. That's why philosophers, like me with 2 degrees in philosophy, talk about different ways to think about this. There are 2 major theories. The first is the consequentialist theory. That means you're responsible for the outcomes of anything you do. You may not have intended harm, but if harm results, that's on you. This seems harsh, but the view is that we need to judge things by their consequences because that's what matters, as it's what we have to deal with. The other view is called the intentionalist theory. We judge an action based on the intent of the person doing it, not on the outcome. Now, personally, I think both of these theories are correct to a point. It matters what someone intended. There is a difference between a person who planned and killed someone else intentionally and a person whose car skidded on ice and killed someone by accident. We call the former murder and we call the latter manslaughter. Both are bad, but we judge and punish them differently because intention matters. On the other hand, consequences matter too. Think about someone who's in the grip of a cult or a conspiracy theory or an authoritarian political system. They may mean well in that they think they're doing the right thing to bring about a better world, but they can be profoundly mistaken and they can do harm. That is how we get atrocities. What results from our decisions and actions matter as well. Ultimately, all of our decisions and actions are bets that could go wrong. No matter how sure you feel about it, a bet is a bet, and bets always involve risk, and not all bets pay off. For me, this is why the psychological and spiritual theme of forgiveness is so important. We need to be able to forgive someone who meant well but messed up. We need to be able to do that for ourselves as well. Now, this isn't a moral get out of jail free card. If someone did something wrong, they carry responsibility for that. But if the intent was clean, we need to consider how we react. When someone asks me to define forgiveness, I say it's a decision to draw a line through time and to resolve that what is on the far side of that line is of less importance. That doesn't mean you forgive and forget, as I don't think forgetting is wise, but it does mean you swear off trying to get even, and you choose to act towards someone in the present as if they had not done something that you know they did do. However, that does not mean you give that someone a second shot at your back. Forgiveness is deciding that you will put aside the fact they tried to hurt you, but it doesn't mean that you turn your back to them again and let them have another go at putting a dagger between your shoulder blades. Or as one internet meme I recently saw put it, you can forgive someone for harm they've done, but that doesn't mean you take them back either. Forgiveness granted, future access denied. And we need to do that because we understand that people will do things for many reasons. And sometimes there are unintended consequences. And we need to have a way of dealing with that if those consequences go wrong. Forgiveness is the antidote. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject. I'd like to invite you to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. And if I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out. Stay well and stay safe.